Hi guys, welcome back to Kat's Cozy Life. My name is Kat. On this channel, we do Christ-based topics. I do some art videos, study with me, vlogs, and some hobby videos as well. I also have an Instagram where I'll post my uni life and some short vlogs on there and just post some random stuff that are happening in my life. So if you'd like to go take a look at that, please do. I just started a new one. So today we are going to be doing a little talk on Second Chronicles. If you are new to the channel, thank you very much for tapping in. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for supporting my channel, and I hope you guys enjoy this video. So this morning I was reading in Second Chronicles. I just read the Bible sometimes. I don't know in what order. Like I started off with the Gospels and all that. So yeah, now I'm at Second Chronicles, and I was looking at the life of King Asa. Okay. So King Asa is the king that came after King Abijah, who came after King Rehoboam. Yeah. And I think Rehoboam was the son of Solomon. He was the son of Solomon. Okay. So I'll just start off from Solomon's life. So Solomon was the king after King David. He was King David's son. And Solomon was basically the heir of David who was picked to be the one who's going to build the temple for God. And so Solomon had a lot of wisdom. He asked God for wisdom and knowledge to rule his people, and God granted him that wish. And he was able to get that, and he was a very great king. He made like loads of riches and stuff like that. I think the Bible does say he made silver as common as like rocks on the ground. So he was very much knowledgeable about different things, and he built the temple and built it very well for God. And then afterwards came King Rehoboam, which was Solomon's son. So Rehoboam, he in his time of ruling, the Israelites came and said, the workload is a lot. I'm just paraphrasing here, like just trying to tell the story of where we're going to lead up to. And so King Rehoboam came after Solomon, and people said the workload is quite a bit. So can you like just channel it down? So Rehoboam went to the priests to advise him about what to do in the situation. And the priest said, say something favorable to your people because you just started ruling. If you say something favorable to them, then they will allow you to lead them. But then he went to his friends, his problematic friends, and his friends were like, no, like you need to basically assert dominance over these people. And he told them, the friends told him to say things like, I'll make you guys work 10 times as hard as my father did. And so he went back and said that to the people, and there was lots of war in his time, and basically he was just not living a peaceful, situation. He didn't have a peaceful kingdom, and things were just going wrong at that time. And then after Rehoboam came Abijah. And Abijah was, he was better. He looked back to God, and there was peace in his time of ruling. The Bible does say there was peace when he started ruling, and he turned the Israelites back to God, and he was able to take control of more of the fortified towns, the cities that they had at the time. And he recognized God as their Lord and Savior and reminded the people of how they got out of Egypt, and there was a lot of peace at that time. And then came King Asa. So Abijah, after he died, then Asa is his son. So then Asa then succeeded him and became king. So what happened when Asa became king? I'm looking at Second Chronicles chapter 14 verse 2. They said Asa did what was good and right in the eyes of the Lord his God. He removed the foreign altars and high places, smashed the sacred stones, and cut down the Asherah poles. So the high places and foreign altars as well as the Asherah poles is all things that they would use to praise other gods. So making statues and altars for other gods is what they were doing. And so he came in his time and he broke all that stuff down. And he said, no, guys, we're only going to focus on God. So then he commanded Judah to seek the Lord, the God of their ancestors, and to obey his laws and commands. And he removed everything in the kingdom that was not of God and restored the temples, put back the gold and the silver that was in the temples. And so he basically he made the Israelites and Judah, he was the king of Judah at this time, he made them look back to God. At some point then he went through a war. Let me just see it. So he did have an army, but it was a small army. And then, yeah, okay, here's it. Verse 9. They say Zerah the Cushite marched out against them with an army of thousands upon thousands and 300 chariots and came as far as Maresha. Asa went out to meet him, and they took up battle positions in the valley of Zephatah near Maresha. Then Asa called to the Lord his God and said, Lord, there is no one like you to help the powerless against the mighty. Help us, Lord our God, for we rely on you. Asa is saying this now. And in your name we have come against this vast army. Lord, you are our God. Do not let mere mortals prevail against you. So this was Asa busy saying, like he was saying praises to God before they got into war, and basically reassuring that they're gonna win this because they're with God. Like he got into a situation where it was war and he immediately called on God. He didn't worry about the fact that his troops were smaller than the Cushite troops. He did not worry about that. He called on to God immediately. And the priests blew their trumpets, and they ended up winning over those armies that were way larger than them. So then after that, then the Israelites, then they did a festival and they entered into a covenant. This is chapter 15, verse 12. They entered into a covenant to seek the Lord, the God of their ancestors, with all their heart and soul. All who would not seek the Lord, the God of Israel, were to be put to death, whether small or great, man or woman. So they all took this oath that they were only going to follow God no matter what, that they weren't going to waver anymore with other gods or foreign statues and all that stuff, but that they were going to focus on God only. I'm sure you're wondering where I'm going with this, but just stay with me a bit. We're just looking at Asa's life, okay? So then, in verse 17 of this chapter 15, it says, although he did not remove the high places from Israel, Asa's heart was fully committed to the Lord all his life. So the Bible is not like a man-made thing. It's not just written by people. Like the Bible was written in a way that it was put together how God intended it to be. So it says here, Asa's heart was fully committed to the Lord all his life. So his whole life, in his heart, he knew that God was God, and that is what he stuck to, that is what he truly believed in. But then let me show you where things come and take a turn. Verse 19, it says, there was no more war until the 35th year of Asa's reign. So he went through the war with the Cushite people and won after he asked God for help. And now there hasn't been a war, and it's his 35th year of reigning, and all of a sudden there comes a war. What does Asa do in this situation? Chapter 16. So Baasha, king of Israel, went up against Judah and fortified Ramah to prevent anyone from leaving or entering the territory of Asa, king of Judah. So this other king, the king of Israel, came and surrounded the whole of Judah to make sure that no one could leave, and his big troops were there, and he was starting a war. So then verse 2 is what surprises me. It says, Asa then took the silver and gold out of the treasuries of the Lord's temple and of his own palace, and sent it to Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, who was ruling in Damascus. Let there be a treaty between me and you, he said, as there was between my father and your father. See, I am sending you silver and gold. Now break your treaty with Baasha, king of Israel, so he will withdraw from you. So what has changed with Asa? The first time he had a war, he went out with his small troops against these big troops, called on the name of God, and then won, despite the looks of the situation. So now it's been 35 years, and this other king, Baasha, comes and surrounds the whole of Judah, and he has large troops. He has troops. He has them surrounded and everything. Asa does something completely different. He takes the silver and gold out of the treasury of the Lord's temple. He takes from God's palace, his own palace, gets another king and says, let's do a treaty together so that this guy, won't have a fight with me. And so he handles his fear very differently to how he handled it the first time. And in verse 7 of chapter 16, it says, at that time, Hanani the seer came to Asa, king of Judah, and said to him, because you relied on the king of Aram and not on the Lord your God, the army of the king of Aram has escaped from your hand. Were not the Cushites and Libyans a mighty army with great numbers of chariots and horsemen? So the seer is now coming and reminding him of how he reacted the first time. And he's saying, yet when you relied on the Lord, he delivered them into your hand. For the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. So if you look back at chapter 15, verse 17, it said Asa's heart was fully committed to the Lord all his life. And now the seer is coming and saying in verse 9 of chapter 16, he's saying, the eyes of the Lord are ranging to the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. And then he says, you have done a foolish thing, and from now on you will be at war. So the wars go on and all that, and from verse 12, then it says, in the 39th year of his reign, Asa was afflicted with a disease in his feet. Though his disease was severe, even in his illness, he did not seek help from the Lord, but only from the physicians. And in the 41st year of his reign, Asa died and rested with his ancestors. So, guys, I'm asking what happened to King Asa. The first time he had a situation with the Cushites, he was bound to lose, yet God won. The second time he was in a situation with the war, he was bound to lose, but he forgot what happened the last time. And so he took out of God's temple and went to go look for someone else to save him. And then after someone came to him and said, you've done a foolish thing, what did he do? He again did not look to God. When he had a disease in his feet, he did not look to God. So what was happening here? Like, after reading this morning, I was like, what actually happened to him? He took a whole oath and everything that he was going to follow God for the rest of his life. The Bible does say he was committed to God for his whole life. And the message I'm getting to here is that God is not a once-off agreement. Like, this is not a once-off agreement. In the Bible, when it says that the Israelites were told to write everything down, it's because God knew how easily and how quickly we forget things and face the things of the world instead of facing God. Even though Asa's heart was fully on God at a point, the moment something came and he was just like chillaxed and he's like got anxious about it and the word, then he looked to another God. He made his own idol by taking from the temple of the Lord and giving to someone else who he thought could help him better. And even when he was in a time of disease, he did not look to God. He still went to go look at another idol or another God that he had made for himself, the physicians, right? So why am I saying God is not a one-time situation? It's because although he took an oath and his heart was in the right place at the time he took the oath, he forgot. He forgot, and it seems like he was just filled up with shame to the point where he didn't want to go back to God. I don't remember which king it was in the Bible, but I always think of that story, and I think we just humanize God so much. Because there's a story where I forgot the king's name. But yeah, there's a story where this king is basically told by someone that, since you're doing wrong, you're going to die this way and this way. And so that king starts crying to God and says, can I just have a few more years? And God then added 15 more years to his life, and he went on to live his life however he wanted. And that story shows me how much we humanize God. When we look at the life of David, David leaned on God fully, even when he made a mistake, even when he was in a rocky time, he leaned on God fully. And what is the difference between Asa, that other king, and King David? The way that they look at the power of God is completely different because their trust for God is completely different. We don't know where Asa's trust was necessarily stemming from, but what we do see in his story is that once it wavered, he ended up filling himself with so much shame that he did not want to look back to God. And I think what this highlights to us is that he humanized God to a point where he was like, yo, I've done God wrong, I'm not going back there. And I feel like in life nowadays, we kind of do like treat God as like a once off type of thing. You take an oath, and then when something goes wrong, then you just forget, and you end up delaying and delaying your deliverance because you are so focused on what has gone wrong that you feel almost shameful to go back to God, and so you let that stop you. And I was listening to someone talk the other day, and they were saying that it's so weird how, as humans, we will try to hide things so much from ourselves and from God when we know that He knows everything. Like, He knew you were going to do what you're going to do before you even did it. But we hide those things so much. Instead of praying about everything, we glorify worrying about everything and trying to fix everything with our own hands so much that we end up pushing God out of the equation. And I think this is what got to Asa. Because there's no way you could have been so devoted in the beginning, and then at the end he was even too shy to even pray about the disease he was going through. And so when he started to trust other things, a seed is a seed, small or big. A seed was planted in him to trust other things. And so he went ahead and trusted other things immediately when things started to go wrong without remembering what God had done for him before. And it's so crazy because it's mentioned over and over again in the Bible that God does not change. He does not change. He's the same today, tomorrow, yesterday. And I always think to myself, why is that highlighted so much? Like, okay, he doesn't change. But this story just shows why it's highlighted so much. It's because we forget. Humans forget. And then we start to humanize God, and we think that when God is angry, He's just going to abandon you. And that's not the way that it works. That's not the way that it works. You have to write down the ways that God has blessed you, the way that He has taken you out of certain situations to make sure that you don't forget. Because if you don't remember how He got you out last time, it's going to be very difficult to get out the second time. And we're seeing that in Asa's story right now. He forgot. He forgot, and so he looked somewhere else when the time came. But his heart was fully committed to the Lord all his life. What went wrong? His heart was committed, but the mental decision to follow his belief no matter what had not taken place. He did not decide that when the something goes wrong, that's where I go to God immediately. He did not decide it, although it was in his heart and he believed it. He decided to look somewhere else the next time things went wrong because he forgot. And then what did he do afterwards? He humanized God. God did not change the whole time. Why would God help him after, yeah, his father's father was doing the most? If he was not going to help him after he's doing the most. Like, I don't even know if I'm making sense, but Rehoboam was doing a lot of wrong things to God. If God was more of a human character, he would have carried that anger across the generations. But God didn't do that because God doesn't change and God is not a human character. God is God. And God is love and kindness and patience, and that does not change no matter what. And so he did not carry that anger generationally, but he gave Asa a place where he could rule and saved them from the war. Yet the next time that things happened, Asa didn't look for God, he looked for something else. So my biggest point today is just we need to start writing things down. We need to remember. I think reading the story about how Asa's life just fell apart. Sorry, not fall, just fell apart out of nowhere. Well, not out of nowhere, but because of his actions, things ended up falling apart even more than they needed to. I mean, point number one, we need to start writing things down. We need to remember how we got out last time. And I know it's very, you can say, don't worry about everything, pray about everything. But at the end of the day, you have to work in order not to worry because it's very easy to worry. That's where you immediately go after something goes wrong. You have to work to not worry. Keep a booklet where you write down the ways that God has helped you, where you write down the way that God has blessed you so that you remember who you are serving when the time comes where you need to actually remember. When you need that strength, you need to have something you can go back to. Write it down and remember what God has done for you. And then, second, remember that, second point, remember that there's your heart following God. Like his heart was committed to the Lord all his life. It's written here. But you don't see it when he's looking to physicians instead of going to God. But his heart was committed. So your heart needs to show in your decisions. You need to condition your mind to know that when this happens, I go to God. And that's going to be every situation, making a decision, any type of emotions, worrying. You have to learn to go to God immediately no matter what happens. Remember that your heart can be in the right place, but when it comes to the actual free will and mental decision, you have to train yourself how to do that every single day. It's not an easy thing, but you have to learn. And then last point, go back. God is not a person. He is not a person at all. God does not turn his back to you when something goes wrong. He does not look away from you. The other day I was thinking about it and I thought of how when I was 16, the Lord basically came and fetched me, like from where I was. And that was a life-changing time for me. It was a very life-changing time for me. And you can see that in my video where I'm telling my testimony about how God actually healed me from gluten intolerance. But I remember just the feeling. You kind of, like, God cares, guys. Like, he cares. And I just remember the feeling of feeling so, like, cared about, so, like, loved, that he came and fetched me. And sometimes I ask myself, I don't even know why, but he did come and fetch me, and that's just crazy. So remember that God came and fetched you. He didn't fetch someone else. Like, if he was gonna turn his back to you and walk away, then I don't think he would have come and fetched you. He wouldn't have sent Jesus if he was going to turn his back to us when things go wrong. That's not how God works. So don't turn your back to God when things go wrong. Like, it's just don't. You need to go back. There's no other way. Learn to go back quicker and quicker every time. Don't try to hide things because God already knows what's up. Yeah, I know this video is a bit longer than usual, but thank you if you stayed till the end. I hope you got something of value from the video, and I hope that your heart has heard this message. I thank you very much for watching and supporting my channel, and I hope you guys have a great weekend ahead or great week whenever you're watching. And yeah, that's my message for today. Thank you for watching Cat's Cozy Life. Please do watch more and like and subscribe if you like the content and would like to see more. I post usually on Fridays. So I will have another video coming up next week's Friday. And yeah, comment down below what other topics you would like me to talk on, and I definitely will put them up sometime. But thank you very much. Bye.